Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Utica. I'm Kim Bywater, and I'm a member of the Worship Committee. Whether you are visiting for the first time or have been a member for many years, you are welcome here. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, you are welcome here. Whoever you are and whoever you love, you are welcome here. We are invited to bring our whole selves to this worship service, our doubts as well as our convictions, the pain and joy we have known, our longing for connection and understanding. Every part of you is welcome here. If you are signing in today for the first time, we are glad you have joined us, and we would love to learn more about you and connect with you with our newsletter if you would like. There is a link in the chat to a form that we hope any visitors would fill out. And we hope you will stay for informal conversation in breakout groups after the service. We have no announcements today, so let us quiet ourselves. Let us open our hearts and minds to the experience of community and the wisdom of love.
So good to be with you once again. One of the great pleasures for me of this time of isolation for many of us is the fact that we can connect in this mode. And here I am at the church of my childhood, the church of my home, the church of my heart, once again, from many, many miles away. And I welcome you from wherever you're calling in or looking in from. It's good to be together in community, to gather around shared values and also shared questions, and maybe even some shared answers. I invite you into this time of worship this morning, thinking together about what it is that life should mean for us. And as opening words, I offer these at the end of the poem by Mary Oliver, Wild Geese. The simple four last lines. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Let's join together in singing with our opening hymn, number 1060, as we sing of hope and joy. And since you're muted, you can sing out as loud as you want. It's a great time to let it out.
As we sing of hope and joy today, some lonely anguish and despair, how can we lift our voices in this way, while some have pain and misery to spare? If a crumbling world we would renew, we must sing no ordinary song. Peals from a noisy gong will never do. In every breath compassion must belong. Let this song our greatest hopes contain, laughter of a well-fed child, its tune, roofs over every heartbeat, its refrain, its harmony from peaceful cities hewn. Sing of joy while hammering each nail. Sing of hope while pulling every weed. So shall we sing together and prevail. May every hallelujah bear a seed.
As we light our chalice flame, we remember this simple set of words that reminds us why we light a chalice flame. The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It is an everlasting flame for this community. It offers its warmth to those who are cold. It provides light to those who would see. It purifies and transforms this gathering space, this virtual gathering space, into sacred space, this congregation into sacred community. May the individual flames we kindle and the common flame that burns for all of us burn true and high and strong.
Hi everyone, welcome to Together Time. We've got a great book for you today. It's called Where Are You From? And it's by Shamila Syed Mendez and illustrated by Jamie Kim. Where are you from? They ask. Is your mom from here? Is your dad from there? They ask. I'm from here, from today, same as everyone else, I say. No, where are you really from? They insist. I ask Abuelo because he knows everything. And like me, he looks like he doesn't belong. Where am I from? Abuelo thinks. His eyes squint like he's looking inside his heart for an answer. You come from the Pampas, the open, free land, he says. You're from the Gaucho, brave and strong, from the brown river that cleanses and feeds the land that gives us the grain for our bread, the milk from the cows. You're from mountains so high they tickle Señor Cielo's belly, where the condor roosts his family and the jaguar prowls the night. But you're also from the warm blue oceans the copper warriors tried to tame, and the elegant palm trees stretch their fingers to caress. You're from hurricanes and dark storms, and a tiny singing frog that calls the island people home when the sun goes to sleep. From this land where our ancestors built a home for all, even when they were in chains because of the color of their skin. You're from the grandmothers who search for their grandchildren, waiting, always waiting in a plaza, their white handkerchiefs wrapping the sorrow of their thoughts. You come from the sunshine that lights our path in this world, and the rain that washes away our mistakes. But abuelo, I ask, where am I really from? Abuelo laughs. You want a place? He points to his heart. You're from here, from my love and the love of all those before us. From those who dreamed of you because of a song sung under the Southern Cross, or the words in a book written under the light of the North Star. You're from all of us. I am. And that is the end. That was Where Are You From by Shamile Saeed Mendez. And I want you to take a think and think, where are you from? It's an interesting thing to think about. Until next time, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
For our offering, we have words by Kristen Collins. We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. Please click on the link in the chat to donate or send a check directly to the church. We thank you for your continued support of our church.
And as always, we light one more candle. It's the candle that represents all those thoughts and feelings and hearts and minds that were not spoken or shared, but are with us all the same, that connect us together, one another, in the deeper space of spirit and understanding. And so it is that we are a community because we care. And we sing together, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Several readings this morning. And the first one I'll have to put into context because it's from Henry David Thoreau, at the conclusion of his book Walden, but I've modified it some. I'm making the assumption that if Henry were to live these days, he wouldn't make it only about men, but he would be more inclusive. So this is what I think he would have written had he written it today. I learned this, at least by my experiment, that if one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams and endeavors to live the life which they have imagined, they will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. They will put some things behind, will pass an invisible boundary. New, universal, and more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within them, or the old laws will be expanded and interpreted in their favor in a more liberal sense, and they will live with the license of a higher order of beings. In proportion as they simplify their life, the laws of the universe will appear less complex, and solitude will not be solitude, nor poverty, poverty, nor weakness, weakness. If you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now put the foundations under them. And from the great poet Pablo Neruda, someday, somewhere, anywhere, unfailingly, you'll find yourself, and that only that can be the happiest or the bitterest hour of your life. And one of my favorite poems from Mary Oliver, when death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and shuts the purse shut, when death comes like the measle pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular. And each name, a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does towards silence. And each body a lion of courage, something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I've made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. And the last reading comes from the poet we all have discovered within the last couple of months, Amanda Gorman. And it's from that poem that she had at the inauguration. And it's not the whole poem, just the concluding portions. Well, actually, the beginning and then the concluding portion. And it's interesting, just like Mary Oliver says, when death comes, that's how her poem begins. And this is how Amanda starts her poem. When day comes, we ask ourselves where we can find light in this never-ending shade. The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and the notions of what just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed the nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country in a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And then toward the end of the poem, and yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We're striving to forge our unionward purpose. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from our bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the golden hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recovery. In every nook of our nation, in every corner called our country, our people, diverse and beautiful, we emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. I want to tell you something about my family. I want to tell you something about the way in which my family is structured. We're a very small family, just a tiny little family. My mother had one brother, but he was killed in World War II. My father had one sister. And then going back another generation, one of my grandparents was an only child. Another married but never had children. Another disowned by family, so he never really knew them. And the other side, there were a lot of bachelor brothers. So in growing up until I was about 18, I didn't even have a cousin. Second cousins were equally rare. I think about this in the context of something that happened in our family recently. That one aunt that I had, and my uncle by marriage, the two of them within a space of a couple years died, and the estate moved into the family, and my brothers and I were named as some of the beneficiaries of the estate, and one of my brothers became the executor of the estate. And so I've become quite well informed about what it is that these people left, what it is that these people have left as their legacy. And it's kind of a grim accounting. There's a house in a suburban community down in Florida in Deltona. There's furniture, none of which has been updated since they moved there in the 1980s. Their daughter had died in tragic situations about a decade ago. There was a turtle and there was a cat, and that was it. Lives lived into their 90s, a turtle, a cat, some very worn furniture that didn't even sell at a yard sale, a house needing a lot of renovation, and memories. And I, for one day, started feeling very sad about this, because here are two lives lived out, and what do we have to account for it? What's written in the will? All these things go to beneficiaries, but what are all these things? Worn furniture, pets that need to be adopted out, a few stories here and there. But then I got remembering that uncle by marriage. He was a regular Rockefeller Republican. So he and I often avoided political discussions. But he, for many years, served as the presiding supervisor for the town of Brighton out by Rochester. And he brought to that position something more important than title or even political party. He brought an integrity. For Uncle Dick, it was important that you live by your word, that what you say is what you mean, and what you mean is what you do. He was a person of integrity, so that in all the time that he was the supervisor there in Brighton, there wasn't a single political or economic fiduciary scandal in any of his departments. He insisted that people live by that value. So if I'm going to measure out Dick's life, it's not going to be in those few items and trinkets, nor in what was left behind in Deltona, but rather what he left behind for the village of Brighton, the town of Brighton. And my aunt Audrey, She was a speech therapist, and along the way in her life, there were many challenges for her, but also along the way, she lived out a belief that communication is vital, that our ability to be able to speak and be heard in ways that talk to our deepest sense is important. So, with grade school children, she helped them to be able to speak so they wouldn't be bullied by others, so their teachers could hear their answers. Later, she worked with Eastman Kodak and Xerox and Bausch and Lomb and others to help immigrants coming into their executive structure learn how to speak in English so they wouldn't be taken first as foreigners, but rather as contributors. It was her firm and central belief that the ability to speak and speak well was essential to our humanness. And so she didn't just leave behind a bedroom set and a worn kitchen table. She left behind lives changed. And so I want to think a little bit this morning out of that experience about what it is we may be living and leaving as a legacy. So often people, when they speak about the estates of those who have died, speak about bank accounts and stock certificates, about antiques and heirlooms, many of those heirlooms being only heirlooms within the family. I'm often reminded of things that my family would tell me, you better hang on to it, it's going to be worth something someday. And the tragedy is that at the end of the days, for that person, it wasn't worth anything at all, other than what it meant to them. Other than what it meant to them. I think that gets to the gist of what I want to be talking about this morning. That it's possible for us to live out our lives and measure them out in very materialistic ways, to think about the houses that we have owned or rented, the apartments we've lived in, the cars we've owned. I imagine there's more than one among us who have even named our cars. And so we go back and mention the cars not by model or year, but by name. We probably have some trinkets around the house that for us make it home. The little things, maybe it's the love rock. I got one here that someone gave me, and I just love to hold on to that. But in time, that won't make any difference. I could look at my bank accounts and decide either I'm in great poverty or I'm in great wealth, but in the end, that won't make much difference. I can think about all those people I have known and probably been in touch with and then lost touch with, and maybe some of that will make a difference. But what is our legacy? Well, let's take a look at it from a religious point of view. You know, we here in the Western culture generally talk about the legacy that we'll give out of our life is that we have shown people that we have successfully avoided failure. Or in a more theological terms, we've resisted sin. Much of the measure of lives is based upon to the extent to which people have not been personal failures in theological terms. The extent to which they were not. Oh, well, I'm sorry you didn't understand that. I don't know who just said that, but something just came over the line. I do know what that was, and that is the wonders of having some kind of intelligent life sitting in my phone in another part of the room. I hope it will go away. But in the Western tradition, what we're doing often is saying, well, you're a failure. All human beings are basically full of failure, and the best you can do is maybe get a little bit ahead of the game. Well, getting ahead of the game is not what I'm talking about. To say to a person at their funeral, well, they didn't sin too much, is not much of a blessing, is it? But if we turn to the Eastern traditions and the Eastern cultures, we have two different religious understandings. One of which says you should make your life such that you don't attach yourself to anything, that you live a life of non-attachment so that you can go with the flow of what's going on and just be present in the moment. And the other part of the Eastern tradition talks about following ritual. All you need to do is follow ritual. And then we have Judaism, which branches between the East and the West, in which ritual and observance is so important. But again, at a funeral, what if someone were to say, well, they really didn't get attached to anything in life? That would be a pretty damning blessing, wouldn't it? Or if it was, well, they were really good at following the rituals. You know, you could always count on them being there for the minyan. And that's all that someone said. That's not much of a benediction on a life, not much of a legacy. And then we turn to the African religious traditions, which is a whole world unto itself, in which there is one cardinal rule, and that is that you are following either the tribal or the family way of being. But again, to be able to say at someone's death, well, at least they did what the family expected, is that really what we want as our legacy? I think we really, at least in our tradition, are searching for something more than just following the rules, doing the motions of ritual, doing what's expected by others, or avoiding failure. I think we're called to something much more. And to get there, I want to go to a catchphrase that was prominent about 20 years ago, and that was practice random acts of kindness. Remember that? Practice random acts of kindness. And I want to actually suggest that's terrible. Just think if at someone's funeral, someone said, well, they were always going around practicing random acts of kindness. Then what did they stand for? What were they about? If you're just practicing things randomly, if you're just doing things haphazardly, if you're just going through the motions, if you're just following the rules, if you're just doing what the culture and family tells you to do, if you're just trying not to make too many mistakes in life, what legacy are you going to leave? I want to turn again to Uncle Dick and Aunt Audrey just for a moment, because they will not be praised in any major temple in America. And no one will say, I need to be exactly like them because they were the exemplars of life. But in a way, they were. They each had central values. They had things that were important to them. And they not only held them in private, but they practiced them in public. They took things that were essential to who they thought they were, that led them toward the goals they envisioned for their life, the things that somehow were beacons to them to something that could be better, not as rushing away from something bad, but rather the things that were the core of what good life might be if practiced. For them, it was a certain set of values, but the question becomes, what is it for you? What is it for you? What is it that is at the core of your beaconing flame that tells you that there's a better life ahead? What is it for you, like Thoreau, that says, simplify your life and focus on what's important? What is it for you, like Neruda, that someday, somewhere, anywhere, you're going to wake up and realize this is either the greatest or the bitterest moment of your life because you have become who you are? Are you going to want to be, when death comes, like Mary Oliver, wishing you hadn't just visited this place? Are you going to be like Amanda Gorman, who believe that there is a light ahead and that we can see it and we can be it, but only if we see it so that we can be it? We need to be able to be clear that it's not about someone else's set of values. It's not about someone else's expectations. It's not about those things that maybe someone else thinks we ought to be about, but rather about what we are about. So what is it for you? What is the set of core values by which you live your life? I hope you have some. And I hope you find the ways to live them out, because in the end, the legacy we will leave will be our commitment to those values that we claim to be ours. So often in life, we read out all kinds of proclamations, all kinds of aspirations. We sing out those hymns, we sing together. We say the words around chalice lighting. We say the words around community candles. But how are we living our lives such that those things that we aspire to are being made real? So a homework assignment, not only for the adults in the crowd, but also for all the young people who may not be here, but will be in the household. And you can have this discussion over lunch or dinner today. What are the key values that inform life for each of us? What are the values which, if denied, would make us less than we are? What are the values which, if we do not recognize, will diminish our capacity in our own eyes and in the eyes of others? What are those values that so define us that in the end we hope they are mentioned at our funerals and memorial services? Because that will be the real legacy, not the estate, not the cat and the turtle, not the worn furniture, not even the stories that people may tell about us, but rather the values that make a difference in how we live. May we so live that we leave a real legacy behind us. And remember, we're not challenged, all of us, to be the greatest of people. We're only challenged to be ourselves to the greatest extent. Now let us sing together our closing hymn, number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Our gathering flame, which flickers in and out, I see. Whoa, that's kind of cool. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. And so we go forth into the world, and there will be expectations laid upon us by others, and there'll be plans made that may not be our plans. And there may be rules we're expected to follow. And there may be things that we are called upon to avoid. But may we remember that being alive is trying to leave a legacy to the greater community, which is all existence. And so I think about these words, which were written by Unitarian Universalist William DeWitt Hyde well over a century ago, but they're ones that have informed my life, and I hope they might yours too. Since what we choose is what we are, and what we love we yet shall be. The goal may ever shine afar. The will to win it makes us free. Blessed be.
Well, if you want to sing out, sing out. And if you want to be free, be free. 'Cause there's a million things to be, you know that there are. And if you want to live high, live high. And if you want to live low, live low. 'Cause there's a million ways to go, you know that there are. You can do what you want. The opportunity's on. And if you find a new way, well, you can do it today. Well, you can make it all true, and you can make it undo, you see. It's easy. You only need to know. If you want to say yes, say yes. And if you want to say no, say no. 'Cause there's a million ways to go, you know that there are. And if you want to be me, be me. And if you want to be you, be you. 'Cause there's a million things to do, you know that there are. You can do what you want. The opportunity's on. And if you find a new way, you can do it today. Well, you can make it all true,